Chapter 55 Your Honorable Friend. Fan Xian was shocked. This thought-sacred quiet place, suddenly out of such a bellowing, fixed clear look, only to realize that the original Qing temple inside someone, stop in front of their own, is a middle-aged man, eyes deep, nose like an eagle hook. Look at the rushing gas full. Look at each other staring at themselves. Fan Xian, heart some unhappy, thought he read the scriptures, history, and the imperial city rules, this Qing temple, but everyone came to the place. You hide behind the door to scare people not to say. But also put out such a pair of eagles wrestling with the rabbit posture. This is very asshole. Who the hell wants to be a rabbit master? Fan Xian frowned and said, Your Excellency is so loud that you're not afraid of deafening people's ears. Who knew that the middle-aged man had an unusually serious look on his face as he pushed over and said in a low voice, Retreat quickly, someone in the temple is praying for blessings and shall not be disturbed. This person's dress is obviously a rich family attendant, but the tone of voice is official flavor. Fan Xian, however, did not notice this. Ever since he had followed Teacher Fei in digging graves as a child, he had developed a slight cleanliness fetish, and as he looked at the hand that was getting closer and closer to his own, he frowned, interlocked his two hands, and twisted the other person's wrist. There was a soft snap. A large and a small two people looked at each other in surprise at the same time, realizing that each other's techniques were extremely similar, actually like twin snakes entangling each other, no longer able to tear apart. Yelp! The middle-aged man let out a light yelp, his eyes shining brightly, and a dark force came out like a great river, attacking Fan Xian's body from his wrist. Fan Xian stifled a grunt. Where did he think that he would somehow run into such an expert? His back was burning. The domineering true qi that had been quiet for many years reacted in a split second, and sprinted out of his dantian to fight against the other side. Buzzing sound, the dust on the stone steps was raised by the collision of the two dark energy, forming a very strange gray ball, quickly dispersed. The two people were shocked apart by several steps. The middle-aged man covered his lips and coughed twice. Fan Xian's face was expressionless and seemed to be fine. The middle-aged man coldly looked at him twice and said, At such a young age, you have such a domineering true qi. Who are you a son of? Why do you care who I am? I just want to enter the celebration temple to pray for blessings. Who are you to stop me? Fan Xian looked at him coldly. There is a nobleman in the temple. Young man, you wait a bit. The middle-aged man was precisely the one who felt that the techniques used by the other party were similar to his own, and thought that the other party might be the son of some family in Kyoto with whom he had an old relationship, so he gradually dispersed the killing intent in his heart. A hint of a smile flashed in Fan Xian's eyes. There is no provision in the laws of the Kingdom of Qing that states that there is a queue for temple sacrifices. The middle-aged man frowned, feeling that this young man was annoying, and with a flick of his robe sleeve, he entered the temple and went away, actually leaving Fan Xian outside the temple. Fan Xian opened his mouth to speak, but his chest was filled with boredom, his throat was sweet, and he hurriedly drew a handkerchief from his sleeve to cover his mouth. Earlier, when the dark energy washed against him, fortunately, at the critical time, his right index finger silently flicked the other party's vein, all thanks to his understanding of the human body structure is more profound than these martial arts masters, or else I am afraid that the injuries will be even more serious. At this time he looked at this heavy wooden door in the eyes. There is a trace of palpitations. No longer dare to try to push this door that seems to be unable to push. Fan Xian coughed twice. Beautiful face more a few points of the color of the stern and resolute, since he could not beat the other party, naturally had to retreat, save for the next day to fight again. Just as he turned to leave, he realized that the wooden door behind him had opened again. The middle-aged expert who had injured himself stood in the doorway and said coldly, Master ordered that the youngster go to the side hall to pray for blessings. Do not enter the main hall. After speaking, he added, Do not enter the main hall, do you hear me? Fan Xian turned around, glanced at the middle-aged man and then at the seemingly unfathomable Sen Qing temple, frowned, flicked both his sleeves together, and just stepped over the high threshold, heading in the direction of the side hall without looking back. Watching the teenager after this setback, still not anxious, not timid, not retreating, still sticking to the initial goal, a trace of appreciation flashed in the eyes of the middle-aged expert. The middle-aged man closed the door of the temple, frowned and looked around, thinking that these little brats actually let that teenager walk to the door of the temple, and must go back at night to have a good drill. The Qing temple is a quiet place. The people of the Qing kingdom are very realistic people. The general people, if they pray for blessings, would rather go to the East Mountain Temple in the west of Kyoto to worship the deliverer of children and those immortals who look like landed gentry. But the people of Qing honored and feared the heavens, and the emperor was none other than the so-called son of heaven, so the temple of Qing became a place for the royal worship of the heavens. Though the temple of celebration was still open to the people of Kyoto during ordinary hours, no people liked the feeling of too much pressure and moroseness. The main hall of the temple of celebration, the one shaped like the temple of heaven, with 2 tiers of rounded eaves coming out in turn, was very beautiful. The middle-aged man stood outside the main hall with a respectful demeanor, looking at the nobleman in the hall with his hands folded, admiring the colorful paintings on the wall, and said in a low voice, according to the master's intention, "He has let that teenager go to the side hall." The nobleman's age was about 40 years old. His face could not be said to be heroic, but his eyebrows and eyes had a look of disdain for the world, only to be diluted by a trace of fatigue that was not easy to detect. "Who is that youngster's son, to actually be able to face you with a palm?" the nobleman asked with a smile. "Middle-aged man, so high-strength martial arts, but in front of him is really like a follower," honestly answered. "Subordinate do not know, just reported with the Lord no, he walked the road, but with the home guards of the road is almost the same." Nobleman slightly surprised, "Oh? Could it be that Li Ji family boy?" The middle-aged man smiled bitterly. "Although my subordinate has always been too lazy to deal with people, but Prince Jing still recognizes him." "Oh." The nobleman gave another "oh," and began to turn his head to look at the murals on the wall again. He had too many things to think about every day, and it was rare that he had such a light hour, so he was not willing to be disturbed by these small things. And the fact that he had previously allowed that young man to enter the side hall to pray for blessings was just purely because he felt that it was a good thing for the country to have more young talents. The middle-aged man quietly guarded outside the hall, his eyes occasionally glancing towards the place of the side hall. After a long time, the sound of clamor came from outside the hall. The nobleman suddenly frowned and said, "The girl is not resting in the back. What is she doing running to the side hall?" The middle-aged man was slightly shocked, transported his whole body's true strength to listen to the sound in that direction, raised his head and said in shame, "The county princess went to the side hall." The nobleman frowned and said, "Nonsense." He suddenly thought of something. His face changed slightly. "You go and take a look. In addition, bring that teenager come to me to see." "Yes." The middle-aged man led the order is about to leave. Suddenly the celebration of the temple outside came a bird call, followed by the temple door was pushed open. A person with a hurried face ran up, handing him a letter with fire paint pressed on it.